Money talks.
And that song ended up kind of starting off our next record. That's kind of how we got that ball rolling again.
I am a registered nurse and I work at the main trauma centre, Harbourview Hospital, here in Seattle. The elements of my job are working on specific things in the emergency room, what are called trauma codes, where someone has a trauma injury of some sort, gunshot, knife, motor vehicle, fell off a cliff, whatever. People have some, preconceived and prejudiced ideas about what being in a band is, and, oh, you're a philanderer or a drug addict or a person with low responsibility. But it's come out, obviously, it's hard to conceal in this town that you're in Mudhoney because, you got pictures in the press and stuff like that. So
when Mudhoney first started and they came to Australia very early, and my band went to America around the same time, 88, 89, and we became friends just because we were in...
As a teenager, I'd been obsessed with punk rock. I'd sort of mucked around with some friends at high school, just like in the garage or the back room or whatever. And I actually started off wanting to be the singer of the band, but as it turned out, we could not find a bass player, and I couldn't play bass and sing at the same time, so I became a bass player. But I had a bass guitar and I was interested in.
I'd already been playing with Guy in Blood Loss, and I was like, if Matt doesn't want to do this anymore, Guy would be perfect for the band. He's a good friend already, and he's a great bass player. He's got lots of really, really cool ideas.
It was a little strange, though, because I've been a fan of the band, and so I always considered the band to be, the four-piece that it originally was, with Matt on bass. Learning the songs and fitting in wasn't that difficult. I started off just by going over to Steve's place in Seattle and sitting out on his porch and just doing the songs with an acoustic guitar.
The first practice we had with Guy, at this point I was just still kind of, getting a new bass player. He comes in and starts playing, and right then and there I knew it was, this is going to be cool, and he's a great bass player. And
that was really great to get a fourth person in the room that was, fully engaged again, like Matt had been at the beginning.
Definitely Guy brought some new energy to the band, Spent a couple months teaching him their catalog and finally started to move forward and write new songs.
He's got a different style, but he's a very, very good player. Excellent choice to play bass in Mudhoney. I was actually thrilled to pieces when I found out that he was going to join the band.
And they're still great friends with Matt too, so it works out, Matt comes to the occasional Mudhoney show and sits out back and drinks all their beer, so it still works out, he does the same thing he was doing before, he just doesn't get on stage, basically,
Mudhoney would never have left Sub Pop if it wasn't for the fact that Sub Pop was going through huge, huge growing pains during the time that Mudhoney was having the most success in the early days. And I think they would never have left, so it makes sense. And as a music fan, you always love seeing that kind of stuff. If a record collector, like you're looking at the back of the record, like, oh man, so in that era they went back. Wow, I want to hear that record, I don't want to hear that major label crap, I want to hear that one, It
seemed like I ran into Jonathan at some show. I walked by him, I'm like, hey Jonathan, how you doing? And he's like, so when are we going to get the next Mudhoney record? And I was kind of like, taken aback. I'm like, you want to put out another Mudhoney record? He's like, of course. And that to me, that was just kind of, well, that's cool.
There are few joys greater than the joy of knowing that Mudhoney was going to come back to Sub Pop when the time came. And it was something that we all felt really excited about, and it was something that made us feel super proud, was kind of for them just to come home, because that's still the way we saw it. It didn't feel even like the good old days, it felt better than that. It really felt like a homecoming.
Sub Pop was no longer flying by the seat of its pants, making it up as they were going along. We were both learning at the same time, and they were learning how to be a record label, and we were learning how to be a band, They learned from their mistakes, and, I can't imagine being on a better label.
People who come to work here, the early days are mythical. So, now Mark is in the office all the time, and there's a certain earthbound quality, which I think, frankly, suits Mark better. I don't think he necessarily wants to be a rock god. But there was this real feeling, the prodigal son, this whole idea of like the band that built Sub Pop is coming back.
The whole end of the 90s kind of energized us. After we weren't getting paid for any of it, we were playing a lot more music, collectively and individually and stuff. We were like doing a crap load more music than we'd done in years.
Mudhoney's style is not mainstream. They never wanted it to be mainstream, and I'm very glad they never made the compromises some of the other bands tried to make.
It's the big, fuck you guys.
In a world where the White Stripes and the Dirt Bombs are getting national attention, like Mudhoney made a lot more sense.
And for the reason that Mudhoney became popular again was because they were almost a direct link to that time and to that place, and to Nirvana. For kids who'd never seen Nirvana, for them this was like a living, tangible link to that whole scene.
As great as those early records are, they're better now.
We recorded that and Under a Billion Suns kind of in similar manners, where we would just go for a long weekend with one engineer in a studio and put down 3 or 4 songs and then mix those and then do the same thing with someone else when we had like 3 or 4 more songs written. And to me, both those 2 records seem kind of a pair.
It's a patriotic duty to make sweet love tonight. Come on, little girl, I've become a dirty old man with a heart on for
Oh, yeah, sure.
We